Hi, welcome back to Her Rules, Her Rise with myself, Danielle Dittberner, and my two lovely co-hosts, Dr. May Lee and Dr. Katona Linn. This is where we speak bold truths with sacred love. And today's episode, I'm really excited about. It is the Lifepreneur life. And so this is really about taking the model of entrepreneurship and running a business and applying that to how you're living your life. So it's really looking at what are your core values and using that as the foundation or the bedrock to how you're bringing your purpose into the world and how you can really lean into the joy of all of the challenges as well as all of the things to celebrate that we have. And so um, the way that I kind of think of this whole lifepreneurship uh, term is it's kind of a way of being, of really looking at gamifying how we're doing things, not just in life, but in business, and really taking just a playful approach to things. I think life can be really challenging at times, and I've always seen entrepreneurship as a little bit of a game itself. I think that's because growing up, I was in my family lifestyle. My stepfather ran his own business, and when my mom and him started dating and then got married, she was helping run the business. So she did a lot of the back end things. And so I, whenever I was staying home or whenever I wasn't in school, I would see a lot of that. And that seemed very normal to me, instead of the typical going out into corporate settings or corporate jobs. And then whenever I was in gymnastics, I saw my coach start her own business. So that was something I was always around. And I was able to see the freedoms that families had from that, or that individuals had from being able to take their vision and bring it out into the world. And especially my gymnastics coach, whenever I was able to see how she took something that she was so passionate about and that she really surrounded her life around, and she was able to bring that into a community and uplift hundreds of children and support them in their growth. That was something that was really inspiring to me. And so, whenever I got into coaching, I realized that, oh, I can actually take my passions and I can bring them into the world. And that doesn't mean that I have to be a martyr, or it doesn't mean that I have to make any kind of sacrifices, that I can actually create a life that serves me while I'm also serving others. And so that's what I do with my clients, is really looking at how can we build a life where you can live by design, by you, so you can be the ultimate creator of that. And how can we make it fun instead of looking at it from all of the challenges? Because yes, starting a business is very scary at times, but it's also very rewarding. And our life is the same thing. It's a mirror. And so I just want to pause then and ask both of you, what ways have you noticed that this theme of being a lifepreneur has shown up in your lives?
Yeah, I'll go first if you don't mind. So for me, and I love what you shared, Danielle, how it's what you grew up in. And, seeing others being successful and seeing the challenges, and so, how that influenced you in such a positive way. And, I'm hearing that it's again kind of made it safe for you. So it wasn't such a scary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I know in our family, I had an uncle who had started multiple businesses. I had brothers who had done that. I have one brother who majority of his success has been as an entrepreneur. And so he, just again seeing that, and I think having ADHD also has helped me because, we're often very impulsive, and that's kind of a piece of what my for my ADHD that definitely, is a part of it. Not
Mhm.
always good, though. I'm more likely to take risks that I may have not considered doing before. And not always thinking completely about the consequences. And, again, like I said, I've made mistakes absolutely with that. And I think I've also learned from it. And I'm hoping it has made me better. And that, blending for me, especially after I wrote a book, having my story out there
Mhm.
was really that step of having faith that my story is the foundation
Sure.
of my work and what I do. And for me, again, my faith, I kept on hearing that from God, like, you need to get your story out. You need to get your story out. And again, it's scary because there's money involved in that.
Mhm.
There is, when you're putting your story out there, what are people going to think? What are going to be the reactions to everything? And so it's very scary, though I think it's that safety, again, when you grow up in that and see others being successful and kind of jumping out there, it makes it a little bit easier to
Sure.
do that. So that's been my experience as well, are
Yeah.
having family members and friends, connecting with other entrepreneurs like you
Mhm.
both, excuse me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And I would absolutely say that the risks that you've taken and the failures, I like to quote failures because I don't believe that there's any real failure. They're just lessons.
yeah.
That has absolutely allowed you to grow,
Mhm.
not just in your business, but who you are. And that's what serves so many people. That's part of your genius
Yeah.
and what you bring to how you help people change their lives.
Thank you. And you are exactly the same, both of you. I have learned so much from both of you and have been blessed in so many ways. So
Mm.
and I wouldn't have had that if I wasn't an entrepreneur. I wasn't in
Yeah,
that lifepreneur life. So
yeah,
thank you both.
yeah. Welcome. May, how about you?
Yeah, I can totally relate to both of you. And I always admired people who are entrepreneurial, that just that ability to take that risk and jump right in with, to me, an entrepreneur, you don't have any, there's no guidelines. It's pretty much, sink or swim. So when I first started, I was more of a 9 to 5 employee mindset.
Yeah.
And there's a very big difference between that and an entrepreneur or business owner. So kudos to all of you. And then when I first started, I had to train myself in sales and cold calling,
Mhm.
because in an academic environment, you're just doesn't they don't teach you that. So I did that, which was very helpful to me.
Yeah.
And then one of the first things I did was try to I got a franchise. So again, that's a little bit more structured and you can see other people's success stories and it's not as much risk.
Mhm.
I say that with, caution because when I jumped into my franchise, it was right around the year 2000 and there was a big .com bust.
Yeah.
And then 2001 was 9/11 and my business just plummeted. So I had to crawl out of that. It was very painful, but it was very It was exhilarating when I became the boss of that little franchise, and I'm not bad-mouthing them. I think they're great for people who own several of them and know how to run them. It's a great way to get started,
Yeah.
but definitely learned a lot of lessons along the way, which made
Yeah.
me a better. Yeah,
And again, even though that was something that you had to close the business down.
I sold it,
Yeah.
luckily. Yeah,
Okay. There you go. It,
yeah,
it,
but
it,
still,
it
yeah,
wasn't something that was a complete flop. It was something that you learned from, that you grew from. Again, you grew so much because of that.
there's
And
a lot of money lost. Like as Dr. Ann said, it's very painful, and it took years to climb out of it.
sure,
And
sure.
it made me very cautious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And that impacts our families too, and I think
yeah,
that's the scary part when you have a family and
yeah.
when financial decisions especially
Well,
have an impact. It,
Mhm.
it resulted in a divorce for me. So
Mhm.
that was devastating.
yeah.
But neither of us was really equipped to run a business
Mhm.
successfully, and the timing was always off. Do you notice that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
think it opens up deeper things that they're symptoms, but it's like what's the root, going
Yeah,
Right.
on. Yeah.
exactly. What's the root?
And going back to the root again, this foundation,
Yeah.
the foundations of our business, the foundations of our lives, those things need to be aligned,
Hmm.
because how we show up one way is how we're going to show up everywhere.
Exactly.
And again, business is just an avenue. It's just one chunk of how we're living our lives. And so kind of looking at like, how can we make sure that we are learning the foundations that run a business, but then taking those same foundations and the foundations of living in an aligned and purposeful life, how can we merge those together? And I think that there's a huge piece of creativity that goes into that. Of how can we lean into our creative mindsets and our creative joys so that we can lead ourselves from a whole place? Um, and so whenever I think of that, I really look at the people that I'm working with, or I'll say the offers that I'm making as a business, leaning into what wisdom have I learned in my life experience, and how can I take that wisdom and serve others with it? And that comes down to the marketing and the sales of being able to articulate what those things are, and being able to show others that this is the pathway I've taken and this is how it's created wealth in my life. Again, going back to wealth is not always financial. It's about our well-being, it's about our groundedness, our peace of mind. And so taking those and being able to show people, um, this is just one pathway forward, right? It's not the pathway, but it's my path. And so being able to take that and share with others. When do you notice yourself, like when you're feeling like your foundation is rocky, how has that impacted your ability to show up with that sense of confidence in your business and in your life? Like, what's that crossover that you both have noticed?
Yeah, I think, you mentioned the marketing and sales and all of those pieces. And, when I talk to people directly about what I do and I share that, I feel pretty confident because it's kind of who I am and I know I'm good at it. It's it's though when it's something that I'm providing an offer that is more kind of packaged. Anytime that I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, I'm less confident in that sales and marketing, even though it's still the same, it still might work, you know? And
Yeah.
it's like having to reconcile that's a little bit difficult. And yet, I think that piece of it can, when things are struggling with the sales and marketing, it absolutely has a negative impact on my confidence. And that I've talked about that with Mark and with both of you about how, when I'm struggling with something that I need to be out there talking about my business, that struggle prevents me from getting out there and talking about my business. We've all talked about like getting on social media more and sharing stuff. And that seems so overwhelming when you're already struggling with getting things out there. It becomes a chore.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Because
so it takes,
that mental
yeah,
chatter is so loud back there, right?
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's like taking that when I'm having a conversation with somebody, I know I feel very confident in what I do on a day-to-day basis and talking to people. And yet when it comes to that sales and marketing, it's like I shut down. And so it's getting out of that, it's getting out of my head and remembering that, always reminding myself of why I'm doing this and that I am doing it to serve others and that I can't do it for free.
Hmm.
It's like I have to be able to make sure that I'm
Yeah.
making money and serving at the same time. So that's probably one of the biggest pieces that I think I've struggled with and it has had such a big impact. And it's just getting out of our heads. And, again, the three of us have talked about this so much. This is why we're doing this podcast, because
Yeah.
when we're collective, when we're doing it together, we're much more likely to get out there versus
Hmm.
trying to do it on our own.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
totally true, Dr. Ann. And I think that's why when you feel like your foundation is shaky, um, you need to remember you're not in it alone. We're not in this alone. And the three of us have gathered together to become more powerful than each of us individually. And that, we're going to be talking about that in another our next episode too, the power of women as a community. So with all these wonderful social media, there's so many groups, communities you can join. A lot of courses that aren't expensive, but people who want to mentor you, train you, and learn the hard way, how to do that marketing and outreach, especially social media.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are still wary of that and they're not comfortable putting themselves out there online. But there are groups that just take you by the hand, step by step, take your baby steps, do your first live, you know, reel or broadcast, and you'll start to get more comfortable with it. Because I think it's imperative nowadays.
Yeah.
There's so much revenue to be made out there. If
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
if you can gather a following and fans,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very different than how we did business, 20 years ago,
Absolutely.
right?
There's a lot more avenues for us to tap into.
Yeah.
What I love in what I'm hearing both of you say is like when we're looking at some of the pieces that we're not as comfortable with, like the sales and the marketing, putting ourselves out there, that and being able to lean into community to help bolster us up. I see like two different things showing up there of our sense of self-worth is maybe a little bit diminished, or maybe it's just not amplified as much. And so being able to do that inner work, even if it's just 5 minutes before you go and you do a live, so that you're reminding yourself of what that worth is, because that's what allows us to show up really powerfully in the marketing and sales. And that we continue to put ourselves out there, and building a community or being involved in community is what gives us the strength and the resiliency to continue going forward.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that's so crucial. And what makes entrepreneurs successful is that resiliency of whenever they do have setbacks or they do have challenges, they don't give up. They do lean on their community. They do lean on their support systems, because we all need one another for this. And so I think that kind of comes to my next kind of piece of like, by making sure that we have that community, that we are also celebrating our successes along the way. And while we're also celebrating those successes, that allows us to really nurture and have the gratitude for where we are in life. And when we're in that space, it's like we don't have to go, oh, I can't wait for this vacation. I can't wait to get out of my life so that I just can have a complete break. Part of this notion of lifepreneurship is creating a life that you don't need a vacation from, but being able to bring those pieces of joy, pieces of relaxation, pieces of peace into your daily life. And so, one of the ways that I ensure that I do that is I have a morning ritual where I meditate, I stretch, I do some writing, and I just am there in a peaceful, relaxed state. I try to go outside and do this as much as often, because that's my place of peace, is to be in nature. And that just allows me to start my day with an attitude of tranquility, of gratefulness, of excitement. And whenever I notice throughout the day that maybe that energy starts to wane, I take breaks. I make sure that if I'm feeling like I need some sort of creative outlet, that I'm painting or that I'm writing or that I am connecting with nature, being able to do the things that bring a smile to my face, that bring me joy. Could be calling a friend and chatting for 5 minutes even, just to say like, hey, how you doing? That always brings my vibration up, and then my days feel fulfilled, especially whenever I have very busy, jam-packed sessions. That could be a lot in one day, having 8 sessions with clients. And so making sure that I'm putting breaks in there so that I'm infusing my life with joy. So, what are some ways that each of you are ensuring that you're bringing all of those creative, joyful moments into your life, especially on stressful days?
Yeah, I love what you talked about, you talked about that having routines and structure, yet allowing that flexibility. And I know, I have my own routines as well. And we have a dog, and around lunchtime, she kind of lets me know, like, okay, let's go outside and let's go walk around. And, so I take her for a walk and play ball with her a little bit. And that helps me to kind of take those moments, because it's easy to not do those things. It's easy to kind of push them aside. And having boundaries is one of the most critical things. And also making sure that we're not, again, not just, one of the big things is I was doing a lot of things for free because I was
Mhm.
like, oh, this will lead to different things. So I had to step back from a lot of those, and not necessarily that I was creating product. It was more of I was helping out and part of communities. It's just that they were in place of me actually building my business. And so, I had to really focus on making sure I was keeping routines and making sure that I'm taking care of myself and not just putting myself out there for everyone all the time, so it's knowing when to say no. But I think one of the, and you've mentioned this, Danielle, was it's looking for gratitude, looking for the positives, because it's easy to get caught up in all the horrible things that happen. And that thinking shifts our, attitude, away from, we miss the positive things that happen. So, you know, gratitude and, ending the day like, okay, these are some great things that happened today. Yes, we had this challenge and we learned from it. And so we have to kind of have that lens that they're lessons, they're not failures. So I love what you said about that earlier, Danielle, because
Yeah.
it's so true.
Yeah. It's like, again, this is where my brain is taking what I know from business and how you apply it in your day to day. Like I'm hearing at the end of the day, doing an after action review. What went well today? What what didn't go so well, but I learned from it. And what do I want to do differently tomorrow, next time? Mm,
Yeah, definitely a learning process, how to regulate your emotions, um, and then not go down a rabbit hole. So if something happens, your brain starts to make up all these stories, and pretty soon it's way, you're down a path that you never even, wasn't even the problem to begin with.
yeah.
So, um, just an example, like if I had a friend that didn't answer my text, and I started thinking, oh, she's mad at me.
Hmm.
And then 2 days later, and I kept texting, nothing happened. So today she called me and said, I didn't hear from you for a couple of days. Are you mad at me? And I said, oh my goodness, I've been sending you text after text because I never received them. So that is the thing, is what I'm trying to say, is when you're having what looks like an impasse or a challenge or a disconnect, always give it the benefit of the doubt, and reach out to the person if you can and clear things up, and don't let it fester, and don't let it go into this space where everybody's mad at each other or misinterpreting what the situation really is. And
Yeah.
then, so yeah, and also stepping back, and don't worry about something that might never happen. Like I get like that all the time. What if, what if, what if, what if, or that means this, that, or that. And it's never even going to happen. So I know it sounds, corny, but it's like a happy-go-lucky attitude. Just keep positive, keep in your joy. And when that joy, it will bring good, positive, and upward spiral, is what I can say.
Yeah.
It's hard at times, but why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to catch that,
Yeah,
like, that's what I'm hearing is like being able to catch that moment when that monkey mind
yeah.
comes into play and starts creating all of these
You can,
stories and information that we really don't have,
and you can
right?
go into that downward spiral so fast
Yeah.
Mhm.
and tank yourself.
Yeah.
Terrible habit. Turn it around.
Yeah. Mm. What's
That
the
is a
thing that,
habit.
what is the thing that you do in those moments, May, whenever you notice that you've gone down that path? What do you do to bring yourself or to course correct?
Well, the typical thing is fix it, deal with it right now, And if you're stressed and tired and your mind is all over the place, it's not a good space to be fixing something. So
Yeah.
if I can, I'll step away. And I usually, I live across from a 200-acre nature preserve. If I go
Mm.
out there, I take a walk, I come back, I take a shower, you wouldn't believe how much that clears my mind and my energy, and I'm ready to take on a lot more work.
Yeah. Love
Yeah.
you.
That's what I do. So same with what you and Dr. Ann do. You have a way to reset your
Hmm.
emotions and your body's physical state.
Hmm.
And that's
Relax.
the beauty of being an entrepreneur, because if we have more control over our schedule to do those little things. And they're even more important as entrepreneurs to do those, exactly what you're talking,
Yeah.
knowing when it's time to pivot. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfect. Thanks. Thanks,
Yeah.
Dr. May.
Absolutely. It's knowing how to, in being able to ground yourself, it's knowing how to run your business efficiently and effectively instead of allowing your business to run you. And that can be if you're not an entrepreneur, that can be your work, your career, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that's your business. It is your business. So I know that we are coming up on time. I think I'd like to just recap and really point out how both of you have just been able to really look at life from a different lens of gratitude, and the way that you both are so resilient in maintaining that focus of being patient and kind and graceful with yourselves is something that I've always so admired, and that inspires me even in the way that I show up, in the way that I'm creating a life that serves me. And so I just want to say thank you to both of you. And thank you to all of our listeners. I'd say one thing that I'd like you to kind of think about in the next week is really look at how you're living your day to day and what things serve you, what things don't, and what could you maybe release so that you can make space to really living a life that is more aligned with your values, that lights you up, that brings creativity into your day to day, and that just gives you the space to have grace with yourself and be grateful for the day that you have. Okay, so next time we are going to be talking about the power of women together. I'm really excited for that topic. And so until then, take care. Join myself, Dr. Maylee, Dr. Ann Katona Linn next week, where we are three voices with one mission of healing, leading, and living fully without apology. Take care.
Bye, everybody.